How was your home? Can you describe? Where did you live and so on?
I was born in New York, and I didn't like it, so very simply, I decided to leave about when I was 14 years old. So I was pretty much on my own from the age of 14.
Have you any memories from the school days?
Well, do they want to hear this kind of thing?
Yes, yes. Because most of them still go to school, so they are vitally interested.
Yes, but we can spend 2 hours answering this question.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to escape from my home, I enrolled in a school for what they say wards of the church. That means orphans of the church. I was Jewish. I was the only Jewish boy in the school. And they accepted me because it was the first year of the school. So I was a stranger amongst many strange boys. And it was a very small school, and I was a very bad student. So that's pretty much my school. And then after that, I wanted to become a cowboy, so I went to Arizona and I broke my back in a rodeo. And then after that, I played drums in a band in Mexico, and so on and so on and so forth, like that. My life became an odyssey, a good odyssey.
You had an uncle who is quite something.
Yes, but he was only my uncle when he likes the movies I do. If he don't like the movies I do, he was a remote cousin. It's very strange. In fact, he was more or less a cousin. And I did not grow up with him. He did not really have a relationship with my family, but with my wife's family. So I got to know Samson Rafelson, who wrote many Lubitsch films and who wrote The Jazz Singer, long after I had grown up.
Kysymys on semmoista henkilöstä kuin Samson Rafelson.
Now, for all I know, he's lying to you. What is he saying?
I'm giving a totally, it's a new version because it's richer conversation in this way that I talk entirely different things.
Okay.
What kind of man was he?
Who? Samson Rafelson.
Who?
Well, the best way I can describe him is a story that is in my family. I don't know how true it is. But when Samson went to Hollywood, he had written a story called The Jazz Singer, which was about a young man who was a cantor, like a rabbi, okay? Only he's the one who sings. And he leaves the faith in order to become a popular singer, and he becomes the jazz singer. And Samson wrote this as a story, and then he wrote it as a play, and then he wrote it as the first talking movie. And it was a big success. Al Jolson played the part. So Samson made money in Hollywood. And the first thing he did with his money is he bought a big boat, and he sailed the boat back to the East Coast of America, where he went to see his mother, a little old Jewish lady. And he was wearing gray pants and a blue blazer and a hat, a white hat. And he said to his mother, "Mother, look at me, I am the captain." And his mother said, "Samson, to me you are a captain, but to a captain are you a captain?" I thought it would be easy to be a musician in Mexico. But the Mexicans discovered that I was a fraud.
Ja luulin, että olisi ollut helppoa olla muusikko Meksikossa, mutta nämä huomasivat hänet huijariksi.
Because I played the bass, you see, with two real musicians, and I couldn't play the bass. Do they know what a bass is? The big stand-up bass, the double bass. So I would hold it like so, and I would go dum 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 dum. And they thought I was playing, but I got blisters on this hand, so I used this hand. And then they thought, my God, he is the first two-handed bass player. And they moved me to the front of the orchestra. And then they could see he wasn't playing at all. He was going dum 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 dum. And they threw me out.
Kaikki näki, että hän ei itse asiassa soittanut ollenkaan. You go on.
Go on.
Yes.
What did you say? Where are we?
Your bass playing has been described in Finnish.
Well, that's finished. After that, I don't know.
Well, shall we go then directly to the mid-60s when you go to show business and you are more and more?
No, I was a disc jockey in Tokyo.
Yeah.
And my first job in film was writing film criticism for the Mainichi newspaper. And also there would be a literal translation of Shochiku films, and I would make a smooth subtitle. I would make it more colloquial. You understand? That was my first job in the movies.
And Japanissa, did you change much? Did you
Oh yes, because I thought the movies were boring, so I reinvented what they were about in the subtitles, and I single-handedly destroyed the reputation of Ozu.
That's why his reputation was so much delayed. So now we know why.
Yes,
because he was the last Japanese great director to come forth, and so you were in the background.
Yes, I held him back.
So he actually, in his lifetime, because of you, didn't see his reputation grow.
In fact, he was the greatest influence I had as a film director, I think, Ozu.
Ja hän sanoi, että Ozu oli sitten hänelle suurin vaikutus varmaan.
I don't drink water with the gas.
Oh yeah. Luulet siellä kossua.
Sorry. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Jesus. Okay. Yeah.
But when you came from Japan, was the States the next step then by chance?
The next step from that was I went more or less into television. Into live television in New York City, but as an assistant, you know, as a somebody.
It's an interesting notion, and I strongly feel that you should explain should we say, about the glory of the live television of that period, because it's something that seems to have been lost now in the television.
Yeah, well, of course, perhaps the most interesting thing about it was fear. I happen to believe personally that fear is an important part of my work as a director. I'm always thinking it's not good enough and that I don't know how to make it good enough. And in live television, there was a constant feeling of excitement and creativity, but mostly fear, because there was no way to do anything a second time to change it. There was no editing. So everybody was really nervous and amped meaning excited, you know? And it was something that informed me later on. And it was interesting. Based on the fact that I had been, you see, a bad bass player, I invented a rock and roll group with bad musicians.
Yeah, that's interesting because the same thing happened here in Finland.
It's why I am it's why I am here.
Yeah.
Because I saw the brothers' films always about this band with the funny hairdo.
No.
And in any event, it's true, and that became the Monkees, that band, that's what I did.
It's a combination of what Beatles was, of course, foremost in the conception.
Absolutely, and the idea about the Monkees I wrote some 4 years before the Beatles arrived, and finally, because of the Beatles, the idea became acceptable, it was a bit of an experiment. The first 30 episodes on the air were directed by 29 directors who had never directed before. No, it's true. Paul Mazursky, for example, was the writer for the series.
But then you did your first feature-length film out of this.
Yes, the first picture I made was with Jack Nicholson as writer. We wrote it together and produced it together, and it starred. It was after the television series. It starred the Monkees, and that was called Head.
It was. It got a kind of instant and perhaps for you a surprising appreciation from Europe, didn't it?
Only.
Not
in America. Well, because you see, in Europe they had not seen the Monkees. They didn't know who the Monkees were. So they could see the film just as a film. In America, it was tarnished because it had this manufactured television group called the Monkees. So they couldn't quite get beyond it, even though the picture begins with the Monkees committing suicide. Nicholson and I were completely crazy when we wrote this, and it was my revenge for having done the series. At one point, for example, I don't know if anybody in this room has seen this picture, but at one point...
Ed.
You see how popular it is? At one point, the Monkees wind up playing dandruff in Victor Mature's hair. In other words, they are being used all the time by powerful, dark, and mysterious forces. And they wind up playing dandruff in Victor Mature's hair. I don't expect you to understand why. Certainly Jack Nicholson didn't understand why. I would say that of all the difficult casting meetings I have had in my life, the most difficult was sitting down with Victor Mature and explaining to him that the Monkees were going to play dandruff in his head. That was a meeting I will never forget.
Wasn't it so that even Henri Langlois saw it and it was shown in the French Cinematheque, so it became a kind of, it was the kind of film that the Europeans wanted to see as an expression of something new happening in the States?
That's a bit of an exaggeration, Peter. Henri Langlois showed the film because I gave him a carpet sweeper for the Cinematheque. Yeah. And as a result of that, he made a concession in his aesthetics. He really didn't care. Langlois' idea was that all film was important and all film should be shown and all film should be preserved, and the quality of it was not something that he felt was his province to make a judgment. So he showed that he showed Head, you know, because he had a carpet sweeper. They know what a carpet sweeper is?
Yeah.
You know,
Joku perkeleen pölyimuni tällaista. Hän oli ajattelut Ranskan...
It took about 5 years or more before anybody to see that film and to maybe appreciate that it had some quality.
Yeah. How was your then? How did you move then to the film world? What happened then?
Well, this was the film world. Head was the film world. Then I produced Easy Rider with Hopper directing it. He was a very close friend. And to do that, I mortgaged my home, and we made the picture for a very little amount of money. And then I made 5 easy pieces.
Oh, let's stop at the circumstances for Easy Rider. It became an enormous event in the American cinema. But did you have any idea beforehand that you would have? Because it was in one way it was a continuation to the bike films that had been in fashion already.
Dennis Hopper was well. Look, let me just. Yeah. This will sound a bit. Please translate this. This will sound a bit pompous because you say everything so briefly. So excuse me for that. Can you translate that?
Yeah. Niin I'm even shorter now.
But I wanted to start a company of a director's company in the United States, and this was in the late '60s. And my feeling about it was, and of course we had predecessors. We had the Nouvelle Vague in France. We had great filmmaking coming out of England. With Tony Richardson and Lindsay Anderson, directors like that. So there were easy models for us, and I turned to my partner Bert Schneider, and I said, the problem in the United States is not that we don't have the talent. We don't have the talent to recognize the talent. And the talent is there for acting, for directing, for everything. So let's start a company and see if I can't be if we cannot be helpful in finding those people. So yes, of course, there have been many bike movies made, but I had known Dennis Hopper as an artist. I had known him as an actor, a rebellious actor, an out-of-work actor, a really difficult person, a person who was also a serious painter, a photographer. I didn't think that the movie that he would make would be like any other bike movie. I thought it would be exceptional. I didn't think it was going to make a lot of money. That was a surprise. But I certainly thought that he deserved a chance to make the kind of film that philosophically I believed should happen in America. So we made a few pictures, and they were more or less by directors who were brand new. Bogdanovich, The Last Picture Show. Henry Jaglom, Jack Nicholson directed a picture for us. The last one to bear the imprimatur of the company was Terry Malick.
Also Malick was for you.
Yes, it's not well known, but Days of Heaven was a BBS movie produced by Bert Schneider. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was just at the end of the movement. I can remember after Easy Rider became a big success, Dennis wanted to do another movie, and we wanted to work only with young directors who hadn't worked with us before. So a studio hired Dennis Hopper. Now, the point was that when our company started, the basis of it was the dialogue that we could have with each other. Not very long dialogue. It wasn't very intense dialogue. We weren't meeting in little dark rooms and discussing cinema. It was just simply, I'd like to make a movie that had a whole bunch of drugs in it and motorcycle and hip music and fuck, we'll call it Easy Ride. It was something like that. And I said, okay, let's go make that movie. Now somebody at the studio took Dennis Hopper and said, what do you want to do? And he said, oh, I want to make a movie in South America, and it'll be a movie where you don't know what's real. The Indians don't know what's real and what's not real and what's illusion and what's reality. And they said, oh, that's a good idea, Dennis, go make that movie. And then about a month later, the head of the studio calls me and said, how do you talk to Dennis Hopper? And that was that you see was the part of all of it that was sort of degenerate and really decadent. That while these guys in Hollywood recognized that BBS had brought about a certain kind of movement, yeah, that when they latched onto it as their own, the only thing missing was that these people in the studios had no way of talking to those people. They had no dialogue. They had no. They didn't have a similar language. They only thought, that's the way to make money.
Pannaan poikkia. Bert Schneider, joka oli tämä toinen osapuoli, oli yhä hänen paras ystävänsä. Että oli partnerit elämässä sen sijaan, että
I hope you're doing a better job than I did for Ozu.
No, I'm pretty much doing the contrary thing, that I'm making your
okay.
Fabulous monologue kind of poor and boring. So now let's go to the point when you made 5 easy pieces, because it's a film that vitally interests us here.
Yes.
And it's known by everybody. It has been in television many times, and it has been seen in the film archive quite recently, and so on.
So what do you want to know?
It's an exception. You mentioned the word that you were proud with your production company that they were non-linear. You were doing the dramaturgy was something different from Hollywood movies, from the schematism of Hollywood movies.
Well, I was interested in telling a story about an alienated about this guy in 5 Easy Pieces. I didn't know the story. I knew the character. And so I wrote 2 scripts. And I didn't like them, and I didn't feel I was getting anywhere. So I turned to a woman friend of mine, Carol Eastman, and asked her if she could make sense of what it was I was trying to talk about. And what I was, in fact, I don't know if this is interesting.
It is.
What became part of our discussion was the Kennedy family. Because there were all of this power descending on the brothers. The oldest brother was dead, of course, and a war hero, and then there was Jack Kennedy, and he was dead, and Bobby Kennedy, and he was dead, and then there was Teddy Kennedy. And Ted Kennedy had recently taken a car with a girl late at night at a party, and the car had gone off the bridge, and it became very famous. It was Chappaquiddick, was the name of the river. And there was, in the news, there was much talk about the Kennedy family. And my feeling about it was that he was somebody who was trying to avoid this responsibility. Do you understand?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I began to use that as metaphorically about this guy. And Carol said, well, what profession should he be? And I said, I think he should be in the classical music profession. His family, his father, his mother, his brother, his sister, everybody should play classical music, but he doesn't want to do it. The conversations were very intense between she and I, and she started to write. She said, well, where do you think it should open? And I thought, well, what is a really romantic profession in the movies? He should work in the oil rigs, like Boomtown. So we will discover him there, and then we will find out that he comes from this very educated, oppressive family. The only scene that she liked out of all the things that I had handed her was the scene at the luncheon counter where he cannot get his sandwich.
Yeah.
Everything else she more or less created from these discussions. And I left immediately to look for locations. Immediately. And 10 weeks from the day that I met Carol to talk about it, I shot the picture. And I of course had Nicholson already in mind, and Carol knew it and knew Nicholson, of course, too.
Okay, but anyway, we now must imagine. All of us remember 5 Easy Pieces, and I would be very much interested to hear about your work with your actors, because it's something that from where did you get the elements of? Did it come natural? What was your system? What happened?
Well, first of all, I was ignorant. So I didn't have a system. It seemed to me that what I had to do was to try to learn how to talk to each actor who did have a system, or maybe imagined they had a system. And so my direction was different for every actor. The basic thing I wanted to accomplish, first of all, casting is, in my work, incredibly important, because I spent a long time writing, and then somebody comes into the room and they suddenly inhabit the part. For this movie, I read 127 actresses for Cora. 127.
Okay.
And I tested Jessica 5 times. It's a long story, but and many movie stars wanted to be in that movie, and I felt she would be a really great actress and a very sexy actress. So the casting itself is important, and somebody comes in and they start to read an uncomfortable situation at best, and only an approximation of what conceivably could happen on a stage. But you're seeing your words inhabited by somebody, and you thought when you wrote it that they were 3.5 feet tall, and that they had red hair and one eye that looked like that. Now comes in somebody and he's 6 feet tall, And he has two eyes that go like that, and a funny nose. And his spirit is different from the way you imagined the spirit. And so you change your mind. And that's so exciting, after a year of trying to figure it out, to find out that you didn't know anything and that you were wrong. And it's a beautiful kind of epiphany to find the right actor for the right part. And I put enormous amounts of effort into that. Huge. For every movie. And for every part in every movie. In the beginning, I thought that it was a bit of luck on my part. But then I began to feel some confidence that if I did it long enough, if I cast the picture long enough, gave myself enough time, that the right person would come in and that I would know it. So that's the key thing. After that, it's easy, because you have great actors, and the actors tell you what to do on the stage, and I take a nap. The important thing I guess I felt was to create like a room where people could come in and really be foolish and make mistakes, and that they would trust that that would not be in the movie, but that they could gamble and be silly and take chances. Jack was a brilliant actor, just waiting to... When we were writing The Monkeys, Jack played all the parts. And I looked at him and I said, "How come you're not acting?" And he said, "Nobody wants me. I'm always the second movie star or the third movie star in the picture. I mean, I don't want to do it anymore. I want to write, I want to direct, I want to produce. Fuck acting." And I said, "But you can act anything, everything." And he said, "No." I said, "The next movie I make, I will write it for you." And even then, we had a fantasy. Because I remember I turned to Jack and I said, "I would like to make 10 movies in my life, and you should be in all of them, and we should do them every 2 or 3 years, and it would be about the same character, just changing every 3 years. And that's all I want to do." Well, in fact, I have not made 10 movies, and most of them have been with Nicholson.
So the original plan is still...
Yeah, but again, by accident. Yeah, sort of.
Yeah.
So, let's see. My cameramen have been Laszlo Kovacs, Hungarian, Sven Nykvist, Conrad Hall, Roger Deakins. Do you know who these people are?
I don't know well Dickens, but the others I know.
Deakins is the best in the world.
That's why I didn't know him.
He is the photographer of many incredible movies, but he works a lot with the Coen brothers. Fargo is his, and what are some of the pictures that Roger has? Mountains of the Moon he made with me. But after that, he's made many. He won't work with me again. I'm not good enough. He works with really great directors, and he's great. He's great. I think he's the best alive today. He taught me the most. So you with Conrad Hall, for example, I knew Conrad Hall. Do you know Conrad Hall, the American cinematographer? Yeah.
Personal friend sitting there.
Yeah.
No, perhaps I could ask that. What did you and your photographer do to catch the look of the basic America, because which was so much different from the Hollywood movies for Five Easy Pieces and King of Marvin Gardens? Because it's
well, first of all, again, from Ozu, I say these things in a joking way, but they're sometimes quite serious. I never moved the camera, but hardly ever, none at all on exteriors. The camera is like so. And so if there's a shot of say, Jack Nicholson here, and he's having a conversation with Billy Green Bush in the oil fields, I shoot one shot of Nicholson here, and I shoot one shot of Billy Green Bush here, and sometimes a shot embracing the two. But the camera doesn't move.
yeah.
And because it doesn't move, I can shoot this shot here 5 miles away from that shot. So I am constantly changing the real geography, which is here. It doesn't exist in my mind. This exists and that exists. And I want different backgrounds. And for me, the actual color and the composition of the background, in one case, this guy's background, because of the character that he is an open kind of green field. And here in the background is complicated black oil machinery. And just by making a small thing, this is very pompous and a little bit ludicrous actually, but my feeling was that between the colors and because I'm not moving the camera, that the editing creates the power, and the rhythm of the editing, and the juxtaposition of one image against another image. So all my early films, there's no camera movement on the exteriors. On the interiors, yes. Now, what do? You discuss with the cameraman. They are all geniuses. I mean, can you imagine what it's like for me, having seen 15 Ingmar Bergman films, to have Sven Nykvist as my cameraman? I can't tell him too much, you know. So, but I discuss certain things with him, and one of those things is, for example, that I don't like white in a frame. Do you really want to hear this?
Yes. Yes, it's great.
It's very technical. Okay, well, I don't want white in the frame. I have a theory, it's actually physiological theory, that if you look, please everybody look that way, that the brightest thing in the room captures the eye. You can't see these people down here because that is too bright. So I never want white. I don't have white handkerchiefs, I don't have white dresses, I don't have white shirts. Never is there any white in any picture, and never out the window is there white. So I tell this, of course, to Sven Nykvist, and he says, if it's not white, what is it? So I said, well, I like blue. Oh, Bob, I hate blue. So we discuss these things, you know, and then you start to shoot. I don't make tests, very rarely. And then you start to shoot. And then you go to dailies, and always in the dailies I sit next to my cameraman. And we are looking at the first day's dailies on Postman, and I said to Sven, it's a bit white, the windows, it's a bit white. About 10 minutes later, Sven turns to me and he says, it's too blue. And I think because of this dialogue that we are going to have a rapprochement, we are going to have a synthesis of our 2 points of view. But Sven is deaf in his left ear, and I am deaf in my right ear. So we have taken the wrong seats, and he never heard me say about the white, and I never heard him say about the blue. And the picture turned out to look okay, you know, but for all of these serious discussions we were having. I don't know if I can tell you any more about cinematography. I want my cinematography to be invisible. I don't want anybody, that's why it's stupid for me to talk about it, because now they know, you see. But I don't want people to know, to see the photography. I want them to see the actors. I never had, for example, big equipment on my movies. One day in my life, I had a boom. You know the boom, the big thing that goes up in the air? Mm-hmm. I tell you why. I was shooting a scene in Postman, and my mother and father always asked me, "What do you do for a living?" And I said, "Well, I'm a director of movies." "Well, what does the director do?" So I said, "Well, he tells the actors what to do." And my mother would say, "You tell Jack Nicholson what to do?" And so I said, "Well, sometimes, a little bit." Said, "Well, what else do you do?" They didn't believe that. So I said, "Oh, well, I do other things too." So they had never seen me on a set. And I invited my mother and father to come to the set, and I got the largest boom possible. The thing must have been 80 feet up in the air with all of the extensions, and I'm sitting there scared shitless on the very end with the camera. With the camera, and my mother and father looked up and they said, "My God, the work he does is so dangerous." And for the first time, they appreciated that what a director did. There is a great, great book to anybody, for me, to anybody who is interested in cinematography. It's not about cinematography. It's written by a Japanese writer by the name of Junichiro Tanizaki. And it's called In Praise of Shadows. And he talks about how he experiences light and how his sense of light is completely different from the Western world's sense of light, and how Japanese people sit in dark rooms, and how he looks at pottery and flowers, and how beautiful the darkness of the light is, the shadowy feeling of the light. I don't know. Read it. I have a natural curiosity also about where I am. When I get out of a car, and if I have not been someplace before, I love to see everything that I can, to go around the corner, and the next corner, and the next corner. And if I'm working with a cinematographer and he doesn't have that curiosity, we will never be able to talk together. The movie that it was the most pleasure for me to make, not the movie I like the best because I haven't seen them, first of all, to make the comparison, but the experience of making the movie is The Mountains of the Moon, which Roger Deakins shot. And he was and it's shot in Africa. And we had to find certain places that were very difficult to shoot in. And Roger would run to the top of a hill and say, "Here, Bob, here." And I would say, "Just a second, Roger." You know, because he was so animated and so fast and much younger than I was that he could get to these places, you know. But I loved that spirit in him, that visual curiosity, the excitement of seeing the possibility of this angle or the possibility of that angle. And cinema should be, for me, should be about that.
Joo, tämä uteliaisuus on...
Should be about discovery.
Yes, by the way, now I remembered a moment ago that there was this one story which I didn't hear. You were telling with Taviani or something about the fake Bob Rafelson. What was that story? I was promised that
Yes,
story would be...
yes. The moment I met Taviani, he told that story. It's very strange. I tried to make it quick. But a long time ago, right after 5 Easy Pieces, I had a certain kind of false, please make this translation, false modesty, that I wouldn't allow my photograph to be taken, and I didn't participate in Hollywood. I was this aloof stranger. And some guy in Italy found out certain things about me, and he went and I got a script, and then he went and he called Mastroianni. And my picture was well known in Italy, and he went to Mastroianni, and he agreed to meet with him. But he asked Mastroianni to go to a hotel room and to sit in a particular chair, and that Rafelson would come in from behind, and that he must never turn around to look at me. So Mastroianni is sitting like this. It's this crazy American. Maybe he pays me. Why not, do it? And the guy conducted a long interview with him and with Catherine Deneuve, and with Patrick Bouchot, and with Franco Nero, all the same way. One day I got a telephone call in Los Angeles, and at the time, typically, I didn't answer any phone calls. I had no agent, no lawyer. I wanted to be a monk, you see, so I was sort of living like a monk. And finally, after they persisted with the phone call, they said, listen, this is really important. We are having a meeting tonight with Bob Rafelson in New York City, and we need to know that you are Bob Rafelson in Los Angeles. So I said, well, what is the meeting about? He said, well, we have given this guy $400,000. And he's going to make this movie, and he now wants to take more money. He needs more money. And we don't know whether we should give him this money if he is not Bob Rafelson. What should we do? Should we arrest him? So I said, no. Give him the money, let him make the movie. If it's a good movie, then I will put my name on it and take the credit for the picture. And if it's not a good movie, then you can put him in jail. Now the strange thing is, you see, many years later, I tried to make a documentary because he went insane thinking he was me, and he went away to an institution, and I was going to make a documentary about him. So you can see that this is so much like Close-Up, the film. I mean, so many things are comparable. But
do
that's,
you mean, is it Close-Up, the Kiarostami?
Yeah, the
Sure,
Kiarostami movie
sure.
is about a young guy who's a little bit crazy, who's impersonating a director.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Now, 1972 comes around, and the producers of this film call me, and they say, you ought to make this movie. We have Mastroianni, we have Deneuve, and we have Franco Nero. So, why don't you make the movie? And I thought maybe I should make his movie. It would be no, seriously, I thought it would be kind of an ironic and unusual thing. But I was preparing Marvin Gardens, I couldn't do it. And years later, Patrick Bouchot said to me, you should have made that movie because it's better than any movie you have ever made.
One last question, Bob Rafelson.
If I am the real Bob Rafelson.
Doesn't matter whether you are fake or the true treasure, but the true treasure of mankind, as we think you are. So please answer this question. You are on a lonely island, and you can choose one film out of all films ever made. Out of all films ever made, it's all films in the film history. What film would be your favorite?
Any film with Fred Astaire.
That's fine. Great. Great. With lightness, you are after the same thing.
I want to see forever the only person who could do what he could do. Nobody else could ever dance like Fred Astaire. Nobody ever will dance like Fred Astaire. Somebody can act like Clark Gable. Somebody can act like Max von Sydow, but nobody can dance like Fred Astaire. To me, it is sublime.
Fred Astaire.
Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers.
If you have an addition, so you can do. But this is a great answer, so we can finish now.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah.